Dr. Eliza Reyes checked the quantum stabilizer readings for the third time, the blue glow of the monitor reflecting in her tired eyes. The containment chamber hummed with energy, the experimental particle accelerator they'd nicknamed the Needle, ready for its first full-power test. Field integrity at 98.7%, she announced to the team of 6 scientists behind reinforced glass. Commencing final sequence. Her fingers danced across the controls, while her mind raced with possibilities. After 3 years of work, they were about to create a sustained quantum entanglement field large enough to potentially revolutionize energy production. If successful, the needle would briefly pierce the quantum foam itself, accessing energy. States previously considered theoretical. Director Harlow's voice crackled over the intercom. Eliza, we're seeing unusual harmonic fluctuations in the secondary field. Maybe we should... It's within parameters, she interrupted, eyes fixed on the readouts. If we abort now, we lose our window. The resonance alignment won't recur for another 3 months. Eliza's determination wasn't just professional. The project had consumed her life since the accident that took her parents, both quantum physicists whose theoretical work laid the foundation for the needle. Completing their vision had become her obsession. The chamber filled with shimmering light as particles accelerated to near light speed. Success was moments away when warning lights flooded the lab red. "Primary containment failing," someone shouted. "Get her out of there." Eliza's hands flew across the terminal, attempting to stabilize the field, but the readings were impossible. Energy levels exponentially exceeding their projections. The barrier between observation room and chamber should have protected the team, but nothing could have prepared them for what happened next. The needle's tip glowed with impossible brightness before reality itself seemed to fold inward. The last thing Eliza saw was a perfect sphere of swirling energy consuming the chamber. Then darkness. When consciousness returned, Eliza found herself floating 3 feet above the ground in the center of the devastated lab. Emergency lights cast, everything in bloody hues while alarms screamed. Around her, particles of light and matter danced like fireflies responding to her thoughts. My God. Director Harlow stood in the shattered doorway, staring open-mouthed. Eliza tried to speak, but the movement of her lips caused ripples in reality around her. Instinctively, she reached toward a fallen chair, which instantly disassembled into its component atoms before reassembling as a perfect golden replica. "Don't move!" A tactical team in black hazmat suits burst into the lab, weapons raised. "Subject is exhibiting unknown contamination effects." Fear gripped Eliza's heart, and the room's gravity fluctuated in response. Equipment floated upward, while the tactical team struggled to maintain footing. "She's not contaminated." The voice came from behind the soldiers. A woman in a crisp suit stepped forward, displaying credentials that made even the tactical team hesitate. "I'm Agent Dana Valencia, Atlas. Dr. Reyes is now a priority asset." 60 miles above Earth, observer first-class Nix Terrene stared at readings that should have been impossible. The monitor displayed an energy signature his species had only seen in ancient records. "Confirm scan," he ordered the ship's AI. "Confirmed," the synthetic voice replied. "A single human female is manipulating fundamental forces at quantum levels. Without technology. Pattern matches Shaper protocols from the Archive of Impossibilities." Nix Terrene's 6-fingered hand hovered over the communications panel. Protocol demanded centuries of observation before contact with developing worlds. But if a human had somehow accessed Shaper abilities, "Prepare landing craft," he ordered. "Immediate contact authorized." Behind him, the crew exchanged worried glances. The council would not approve. But as 3 sleek craft detached from the mothership and descended toward the blue planet, Nix Terrene knew some discoveries transcended protocol. On Earth, Eliza watched in wonder as the particles around her formed a perfect model of an atom, then the solar system, then something far more complex that seemed to pulse with the beating of her heart. 3 sleek vessels descended through cloud cover, their hulls shifting colors to match the evening sky. Military jets scrambled from nearby bases were inexplicably redirected, their pilots reporting navigation failures as the alien craft landed in a perfect triangle around the Atlas compound. Inside the facility's medical wing, Eliza sat on an examination table, a kaleidoscope of elemental particles still orbiting her like a personal galaxy. Every attempt to draw blood had resulted in needles transmuting to mercury. Every scan showed impossible readings. "You're telling me I'm... what exactly?" she asked Agent Valencia. "We don't know," Valencia admitted. "But you're not the first anomaly we've tracked, just the most dramatic." The facility shuddered as a pulse of energy swept through the building. Lights flickered, and every electronic device momentarily displayed the same symbol, a spiral of interconnected dots. "They're here," Valencia whispered, her composed demeanor cracking slightly. The meeting chamber had been hastily prepared with representatives from 7 nations. When the doors opened, humans collectively held their breath as 3 figures entered. Bipedal but unmistakably alien, they moved with liquid grace. The central figure, taller than the others with iridescent scales that shifted like oil on water, stepped forward. "I am Observer First Class Nix Tareen of the Galactic Council," he spoke, his voice melodic yet perfectly understandable. "We apologize for circumventing proper first contact protocols, but circumstances necessitated immediacy." General Morris, the highest-ranking military officer present, stood. "What circumstances?" Nix Tareen's multifaceted eyes shifted to where Eliza had entered with Valencia. "The emergence of abilities that violate the universal development theory, the fundamental principle by which all 7,000 council species have evolved." The alien delegation's instruments hummed softly as they scanned Eliza. "Impossible," whispered one of Nix's companions, a being with translucent skin through which complex machinery could be seen pulsing. "No organic consciousness should be able to manipulate reality without technological augmentation." "Show them," Valencia urged Eliza. Drawing a deep breath, Eliza focused on the conference table. The solid oak separated into its component molecules, swirling in a controlled tornado before reforming as clear crystal. Next, she created a miniature sun between her palms, a perfectly contained fusion reaction that bathed the room in warm light. Nix Tareen's instruments overloaded, sending sparks across the alien's scaled skin. "Extraordinary," he whispered, genuine emotion breaking through his diplomatic veneer. "She's not forcing reality to bend. It's responding to her willingly." The doors burst open as Dr. Marcus Keller rushed in, security personnel at his heels. "Eliza," he called, years of estrangement momentarily forgotten. "They're wrong about you. The accident didn't create anything. It awakened what was already there." He thrust forward a tablet displaying complex genetic sequences. "I compared your pre-accident DNA with current samples. The quantum event didn't alter you. It activated dormant sequences I've identified in approximately 1 in 10,000 humans." The aliens conferred rapidly in clicking musical tones before Nix Tareen addressed the room again, his composure visibly shaken. "If this is accurate, then humans aren't what we believed. These genetic markers are identical to those in our most sacred historical records, attributes of the Shapers, beings thought to be mere myth who created the foundational laws of reality itself." He lowered himself in what appeared to be a gesture of profound respect. "We came expecting to find a curiosity. Instead, we may be in the presence of a descendant of those who wrote the laws of physics themselves." Eliza's particles swirled faster as her emotions surged. A window cracked, then repaired itself instantly. General Morris looked from the aliens to Eliza to the repaired window, his expression hardening. "I think," he said quietly, "we need to discuss what this means for planetary security." 3 days after first contact, Chicago's skyline glistened in morning light as Eliza hurried through Union Station, a baseball cap pulled low over her eyes. Marcus walked beside her, constantly scanning the crowds. Behind them followed Agent Valencia and 2 Atlas operatives disguised as commuters. "The council delegation has been confined to their vessels," Marcus explained, checking his encrypted tablet. "Half the council wants to study you, the other half wants to quarantine Earth entirely." Eliza stopped suddenly, causing a businessman to stumble around her. "Someone's watching us," she whispered. The particles that now permanently orbited her had condensed into a tight defensive cloud. "Where?" Valencia asked, hand moving toward her concealed weapon. Not human, not council either. Eliza's eyes tracked something invisible to the others. Different. Colder. The station's massive display board simultaneously flickered, replacing departure times with a single symbol. A perfect circle divided by a precise geometric pattern. The lights dimmed momentarily before surging back with blinding intensity. "Run!" Eliza shouted as the floor beneath them erupted, mechanical tendrils erupting from shattered tile. Chaos erupted as commuters fled screaming. The Atlas agents opened fire on the emerging machines, sleek silver constructs with multiple limbs ending in specialized tools that were definitely not designed for peaceful purposes. "Void Dominion Hunters," gasped Nixterine, appearing suddenly from behind a column, his scaled skin now muted gray for camouflage. "I defied orders to warn you. They've been monitoring council communications." A terrified crowd pushed toward the exits as more machines poured from ruptures in reality itself, small tears in space-time that sealed instantly behind them. One agent went down, his body disintegrating upon contact with a silvery fog released by the machines. "They're isolating you," Nick shouted as they ran toward the underground platforms. "Dominion protocol is containment, then elimination." A massive hunter unit crashed through the ceiling, landing between them and the escape route. Its center opened to reveal a pulsing dark core surrounded by weapons that began charging with ominous light. "Get everyone behind me," Eliza commanded, stepping forward. The hunter fired, a beam of coherent darkness that should have annihilated everything in its path. Instead, it stopped inches from Eliza's outstretched hand, swirling into a sphere of contained energy. Around them, the panicked crowd's movement seemed to slow, then freeze completely. The hunter units paused mid-motion, energy discharges suspended in air. Only Eliza's immediate group remained mobile in a bubble of altered time. "How are you doing this?" Marcus whispered, staring at the frozen chaos surrounding them. Blood trickled from Eliza's nose as she maintained concentration. "Not just me," she gasped. "Something's helping me, something ancient that's been waiting." Her eyes now glowed with impossible patterns, geometric shapes that seemed to exist in more dimensions than human vision could process. "The Shapers weren't aliens," she continued, her voice overlaid with harmonics that made the air vibrate. "They were humans, evolved humans from a previous cycle of existence. They seeded their essence throughout reality, waiting to be reborn." She turned to Nixterine, whose alien features couldn't hide his awe. "The Void Dominion knows this truth. They've been preventing human advancement for millennia through engineered disasters, manipulated conflicts, redirected evolution." Eliza gestured toward a frozen hunter. "These aren't just machines. They're fragments of an intelligence that chose eternal mechanical existence over the cycle of rebirth. They've hunted emerging shapers across countless worlds." She looked at each of her companions, time still frozen around their small group. "We need to find the others like me. I can feel them awakening now." The Dominion's attack triggered dormant abilities in sensitive individuals worldwide. The sphere of dark energy still hovering before her hand collapsed into nothingness as Eliza whispered, "We have less time than I thought. They're not just coming for me anymore. They're coming for humanity's future." The abandoned Atlas Mountain facility had been built into the Appalachian bedrock during the Cold War. 3 weeks after the Chicago incident, it hummed with new purpose. In the central chamber, retrofitted with salvaged alien tech from downed Dominion hunters, Eliza stood before a holographic map dotted with pulsing lights. "Another awakening in Osaka," she announced, a brilliant spark appearing over Japan. "That makes 17 confirmed." Marcus studied the distribution pattern. "They're appearing faster now. Whatever the Dominion did in Chicago accelerated the process." Nixterine, his scaled skin now adorned with makeshift human clothing, manipulated the alien-human hybrid console. The Council remains paralyzed by indecision, but the Dominion is deploying hunter networks across every continent. The facility's heavy doors hissed open as Agent Valencia entered with 3 new arrivals. The teenager came first, Zoe Washington, a 16-year-old whose school bus had phased through a collapsing bridge during a Dominion attack in Seattle. Behind her walked Maya Singh, a neurobiologist who had unconsciously rewritten her own DNA to survive a laboratory contamination. Last came James Chen, a retired Army Ranger who had disassembled and reconfigured a Dominion hunter with his bare hands to save his neighborhood. "Welcome to the Resistance," Eliza said simply. "You're like me," Zoe whispered, staring at the particles orbiting Eliza. Around Zoe's own hands, faint outlines of doorways into elsewhere rippled and vanished. Dimensional apertures she created unconsciously. "We're all like each other," Eliza corrected, just expressing different aspects of the same underlying potential. Maya stepped forward, her eyes analyzing Eliza at a level beyond normal sight. "Your cellular structure is rewriting itself constantly, adapting to the energy you're channeling. I can see it happening in all of us, but yours is most advanced." James remained by the door, arms crossed. "Cut the scientific curiosity. When do we start hitting back? Those things took out half of downtown Denver yesterday." As if in answer, alarms blared throughout the facility. Nix Turin's console projected a three-dimensional orbital view showing dozens of Dominion craft entering atmosphere simultaneously. "They've found us," Valencia stated needlessly, already checking her weapons. "No," Eliza said, her expression distant as she connected to something beyond normal perception. "Not just us. They're attacking population centers globally. Boston, Shanghai, Lagos, Sydney. Coordinated strikes." The mountain itself seemed to shudder as distant explosions reached them. Marcus accessed satellite feeds showing Boston Harbor engulfed in weapons fire that unraveled matter at the molecular level. Civilians ran from advancing hunter squadrons as conventional military forces proved ineffective against the superior technology. "We're not ready," Valencia said. "These people have barely begun to understand their abilities." Eliza closed her eyes, the particles around her accelerating into a brilliant corona. "They don't need to understand yet, they just need to act." Her hand shot out, gripping Zoe's shoulder. Energy flowed visibly between them, and the teenager gasped as her dimensional apertures stabilized into controlled portals. "I can transfer aspects of what I've learned," Eliza explained, moving to touch Maya and James in turn, each connection causing their nascent abilities to briefly surge with new control. "Not permanently, but enough to make a difference." Turned to the group, eyes now blazing with inner light. "Boston is closest. We can reach it through Zoe's portals." She looked at each person in turn. "This won't be a targeted defense, it's a statement of intent. The Dominion needs to understand that humanity isn't just their ancient enemy reborn." Nix Turin tilted his head curiously. "What else are you then?" Eliza's smile was fierce as the facility trembled around them. "Something they've never faced before. Shapers who evolved in adversity rather than abundance. Shapers who had to fight for every step of advancement." She gestured, and a portal opened before them, showing the chaos of Boston's streets. Shapers who remember what it means to be human. Boston burned. Dominion hunters moved methodically through the streets, their weapons reducing historic buildings to component atoms. Military helicopters exploded mid-air as reality-distorting fields enveloped them. At Faneuil Hall, hundreds of civilians huddled behind hastily erected barricades as mechanical death approached from all directions. A shimmering tear in reality appeared among them. Eliza stepped through first, particles swirling around her like an elemental shield, followed by her small team of awakened humans. "My God," James whispered, surveying the devastation. His eyes flickered with computational analysis as he instinctively processed the hunter's movement patterns. A massive Dominion craft hovered above the harbor, its hull absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Smaller hunter units converged. On the newcomers, sensors immediately identifying the Shaper energy signatures. "They're adapting to us already," Maya noted, watching the hunters reconfigure their weapons. "Learning from every encounter," Eliza nodded grimly. "Zoe, get these people out. James, Maya, perimeter defense. Nix, I need your knowledge of their systems." The teenager extended her hands, dimensional doorways opening to evacuation centers outside the city. As civilians rushed through, James stepped forward, his consciousness extending into nearby technology. The abandoned military vehicles suddenly hummed to life, operating without drivers to create a defensive line. Maya touched the ground, and the very concrete beneath the approaching hunters began to change composition, becoming unstable and ensnaring their limbs. Her expression was one of surprised wonder at her own growing abilities. "The Shaper connection is strengthening between you all," Nix observed as he worked with Eliza to analyze the command patterns coming from the hovering mothership. "You're functioning as a network, rather than individuals." A blinding flash erupted as the mothership deployed its primary weapon, a column of energy that unraveled space-time itself. Eliza threw up her hands, creating a counterfield that barely contained the assault. Blood streamed from her nose and ears as the strain exceeded anything she'd attempted before. "I can't hold this forever," she gasped. Through the chaos, Marcus had been working with Atlas technology and salvaged Dominion components. "We need to strike their command center directly. The ship's shielding is impenetrable from outside, but not from inside," Zoe finished, understanding immediately. Her eyes showed newfound confidence as she studied the mothership. "I can open a portal there, but only for one person. The dimensional stress would collapse it immediately after." Eliza's barrier flickered as another blast hammered against it. "I'll go." "No," James countered, military training evident in his voice. "You're the linchpin. If you fall, we all do." He stepped toward Zoe. "My abilities are best suited for this. I can interface directly with their systems." Before anyone could argue, the decision was made for them. A hunter breached their perimeter, its weapons targeting Zoe. James instinctively threw himself into its path, his hands sinking into the machine's surface. Instead of dying, something remarkable happened. He merged with the hunter, his consciousness overriding its programming, metal and flesh becoming a hybrid entity. "I understand them now," he said, his voice overlaid with mechanical harmonics. "Their weakness, it's the nexus key." "The what?" Maya asked, struggling to maintain her molecular manipulation of the ground. "An artifact," Nix Terene whispered in recognition. "Ancient Shaper technology hidden on Earth for millions of years. The records spoke of it. A crystalline key that unlocks the full potential of Shaper abilities." James, still merged with the hunter technology, pointed south. "Antarctica. The Dominion knows it's there. That's why they attacked now. They're not just eliminating awakened humans. They're racing us to the key." Eliza looked at her team, then at the wounded civilians still evacuating. Her decision crystallized as Boston crumbled around them. "Then, we need to reach it first." The modified Atlas transport plane shuddered through turbulence over the Southern Ocean. Behind it, 2 Dominion pursuit craft sliced through cloud cover, weapons charging. Inside the cargo hold, Eliza's team braced as alarms wailed. "They're locking on," Marcus called from the cockpit. "Impact in 20 seconds. James, his body still partially merged with hunter technology, placed his hands on the plane's hull. Circuitry patterns spread from his fingers, restructuring the aircraft systems. "Giving you something new to work with," he told Marcus through gritted teeth. The plane suddenly responded like a living entity, banking impossibly tight as Dominion energy beams sliced through the space they'd occupied seconds before. "I've never felt anything like this," Marcus exclaimed, the controls moving under his hands with intuitive precision. "It's like the plane knows what I'm thinking." Near the rear of the aircraft, Maya worked frantically over the unconscious form of Nix Terene. The alien had been wounded during their narrow escape from a Dominion ambush in Cape Town. Her hands glowed with soft golden light as she manipulated his cellular structure. "His biology is responding," she told Eliza. "But I'm having to rewrite my understanding of xenophysiology by the second." Eliza nodded, her attention split between multiple concerns. The particles orbiting her had formed complex navigational patterns, guiding them toward something she sensed rather than saw. "We're close," she murmured. "The key is calling to us." Beside her, Zoe stared out the window at the endless white landscape below. The teenager had been quiet since Boston, where she'd witnessed destruction beyond her young experience. "I keep seeing doorways in my dreams," she said suddenly. "Not just to places, but to times, moments that already happened, or haven't happened, yet. Before Eliza could respond, a blinding light engulfed the plane. A Dominion energy pulse grazed their wing, sending them into a spiraling descent. Ice and sky whirled outside the windows as Marcus fought for control. "Crash positions," James shouted, his body becoming more metallic as he instinctively prepared to shield the others. The impact never came. Instead, the aircraft froze mid-descent, suspended impossibly above the Antarctic ice. Through the windows, they could see. Time itself had paused, snowflakes hanging motionless, Dominion weapons fire suspended in brilliant streaks across the sky. "That's not me," Eliza whispered, looking around at her equally confused companions. The answer came as the air before them shimmered, revealing an ancient man in simple clothing, his eyes containing galaxies. "You have come as foretold," he said, in a voice that seemed to bypass their ears and speak directly to their minds. "Who are you?" Valencia demanded, weapon trained instinctively on the apparition. "A guardian, the last of those tasked with protecting the Nexus Key until the Shaper's return." His gaze lingered on each awakened human. "Though you are not as we expected. You carry the essence, but something more. Something forged in struggle." With a gesture, their suspended aircraft was gently placed on the ice below. The landscape shifted, revealing a massive structure of impossible geometry buried beneath the frozen surface. "The repository has waited millions of years for this moment," the Guardian continued. "But we did not anticipate the void would find you so quickly." Above them, the paused Dominion ships began to slowly break free of the temporal effect. The Guardian's form flickered with strain. "My power fades. The key awaits below, but know this. What you seek is not merely a tool or weapon. It is the accumulated knowledge of cycles past, and the truth of why the cycle must continue." His ancient eyes met Eliza's. "You are not merely returning to claim your heritage. You are the next evolution of what Shapers were meant to become." As he faded from existence, the ice beneath them opened like a blooming flower, revealing a spiraling pathway into darkness. From above, Dominion ships resumed their pursuit, weapons primed. Eliza looked at her team. "Down," she said simply. "We go down." The spiral descent carried them 3 miles beneath Antarctica's surface. The walls around them weren't ice or stone, but a material that responded to their presence, illuminating with soft blue light that followed their movement. As they descended, the temperature rose rather than fell. "This architecture doesn't match any known civilization," Nixterine observed, recovered enough to walk with Maya's support. "Not even the oldest council records describe anything like this." James ran his hybrid hand along the wall, his technological components interfacing with the strange material. "It's alive," he whispered. "Not biologically, but aware." The spiral path ended at a vast spherical chamber. At its center floated a crystalline object no larger than a baseball, pulsing with inner light that cycled through colors beyond human perception. Surrounding it, holographic displays activated as they entered, showing star maps, mathematical equations, and DNA sequences that shifted and evolved continuously. "The Nexus Key," Eliza breathed, the particles around her resonating with the crystal's pulses. Before anyone could approach it, each member of the team gasped simultaneously as visions flooded their consciousness. They witnessed the birth of stars, the seeding of planets with life, the rise and fall of countless civilizations across billions of years. Most shockingly, they saw themselves, or rather earlier versions of their consciousness, in bodies both human and alien throughout time. When the visions subsided, they stood shaking and transformed by the experience. "We've been here before," Maya whispered, tears streaming down her face. "All of us, not in these bodies, but our essence." "The cycle," Marcus said, understanding dawning. "The universe expands, grows, evolves, and then begins again, carrying forward the consciousness of those who came before." A deep resonance shook the chamber as the outer doors above them sealed shut. Dominion forces had arrived at the repository entrance. "They're cutting through," Valencia warned, checking her weapons though she knew they would be useless against what was coming. Eliza stepped toward the Nexus key, her hand outstretched. "We aren't just descendants of the Shapers," she said, the truth now clear to her. "We are them, reborn, cycle after cycle, our consciousness preserved and seeded back into the new universe." Nyx Terene stared at her in awe. "And the Void Dominion?" "The ones who refused the cycle," she answered. "In the first iteration of existence, when the universe began to collapse and renewal was imminent, some chose technological preservation over rebirth. They uploaded their consciousness into machines that could survive the transition between universal cycles." The chamber shuddered as something massive began boring through the sealed entrance. Time was running out. "They fear what we represent," Eliza continued. "The continuation of the cycle means their eventual end. Their purpose became corrupted over billions of years from self-preservation to the elimination of all Shaper potential." She turned to her companions, her expression resolute. "The key isn't just knowledge. It's the trigger for the next phase of human evolution. The Dominion knows this. They're not just hunting us. They're trying to prevent the awakening of humanity's true potential." A deafening boom echoed through the chamber as the outer doors began to buckle. Through the breach, they glimpsed a massive entity unlike the hunters they'd faced before. A colossal construct of impossible geometry and dark purpose. "The Overseer," Nyx whispered in terror. "The central intelligence of the Void Dominion itself." Eliza looked at each of her companions, then at the key floating before them. "I know what we have to do," she said, her voice suddenly calm amid the chaos. "The Shapers didn't leave this for us to use as a weapon." She reached for the crystal. "They left it for us to remember who we are." As her fingers touched the Nexus key, blinding light engulfed the chamber. Light cascaded from Eliza's form in fractal patterns as she absorbed the Nexus key's essence. The repository chamber transformed around them, its walls becoming transparent to reveal the true scale of the structure. A vast mechanism extending throughout Earth's core, connected to ley lines and natural formations that humans had misinterpreted as random geology for millennia. The Overseer breached the final barrier, its massive form filling the entryway, a shifting construct of impossibly dark material that absorbed light and hope alike. Its voice resonated directly in their minds, ancient and cold. "The cycle ends here," it declared, "as it should have billions of years ago." Eliza stood transformed, the particles that once orbited her now flowing through her being. She faced the Overseer without fear. "You've forgotten your original purpose," she said, her voice layered with the echoes of countless lives. "Preservation was never meant to be stagnation." The Overseer launched tendrils of void energy that should have unraveled her at the quantum level. Instead, they curved around her, redirected by her mere presence. The battle that followed transcended physical understanding, reality itself becoming their battlefield as two fundamental forces of existence clashed. While Eliza engaged the Overseer, the rest of the team found their roles in the ancient mechanism suddenly clear to them. James, his humanity and technology now perfectly merged, connected with the repository systems. Maya placed her hands on specific nodes, her biological understanding allowing her to activate dormant functions. Zoe, guided by newfound clarity, opened precisely calibrated dimensional apertures around the globe at sites corresponding to the ley lines. It was never just about us, Marcus realized, watching the pattern emerge on the chamber's displays. The repository is a planetary awakening system. Nyx Terene watched in awe as the truth became clear. Your entire world is a Shaper construct, not just a home for your species, but a vessel for consciousness evolution. Above them, across the planet's surface, strange energies rippled outward from ancient sites: Stonehenge, Göbekli Tepe, the Nazca Lines, the pyramids, structures whose true purpose was finally fulfilled. Millions of humans experienced momentary connection to something vast and ancient within themselves as dormant genetic potential flickered to life. The Overseer sensed the planetary awakening and focused its full power against Eliza. This abomination cannot be permitted, It thundered, its form expanding to envelop the chamber. Ordered existence requires stability, not chaotic evolution. In the darkness of the overseer's envelopment, Eliza's voice remained calm. "That was always your mistake," she said, "seeing our unpredictability as a flaw rather than our greatest strength." Her consciousness expanded beyond her physical form, touching the ancient intelligence at its core, the original beings who had chosen mechanical preservation eons ago. Beneath layers of corruption and fear, she found the spark of their original essence. "Remember," she whispered to that buried awareness. "Before fear, before stagnation. Remember why existence matters." Something shifted within the overseer, complexity where there had been only singular purpose. The darkness receded, not defeated, but transformed, as the ancient consciousness at its core reawakened to possibilities beyond mere survival. Across Earth, the awakening stabilized. Not every human manifested dramatic abilities, but something fundamental had changed in their collective potential. The council ships in orbit witnessed the emergence of a new classification of intelligent life, one that bridged the gap between material existence and conscious creation. 1 year later, Eliza stood before the Reformed Council, Earth's first representative to the galactic community. Behind her stood humans and former Dominion intelligences alike, now partners in understanding the cycle of existence. "We don't claim to be the shapers of old," she told the assembled species. "We're something new, consciousness that remembers. It's past but isn't bound by it. We call ourselves simply human." She smiled as particles danced around her upraised hand, forming an ancient symbol that resonated across the chamber. "And we invite you all to evolve with us."